Doing a book on the camera collection from George Eastman House is something we've talked about pretty much since I've been here, which is about 20 years. We started out with a conversation with the owner of Sterling Publications from New York City. It was over a dinner. We kind of went through a little bit of what we had here. We toured him through the collection, and we decided to do a book on 150 cameras from the collection. And then a little bit later, when they went to sell the book to Barnes & Noble, who is the major distributor of the book, they wanted a history of photography, so we were to also include 100 images from the photographic collection here. So what we have, what started out being a camera book, actually ends up being a book on the history of photography as told through the camera. What I decided to do in staging or in putting the book together was to stage it out. So we're actually kind of looking at a behind-the-scenes look at producing the book. We sorted the various objects by size. They had to be moved down to our studio for photography purposes, photographic purposes. We also needed to have access to all of these objects. I gave our studio photographer instructions to photograph, a three-quarter view from the right, a three-quarter view from the left, a straight-on view. On specific cameras, I wanted details that would illustrate something that we're going to talk about. And I also gave her the instructions, and if there's something else you like about it, go ahead and photograph that also. We did this to give the book designer a lot of flexibility as to how it would look when it was put together. In trying to figure out how to do this, again, picking a 350 or so from 8,000, you start with the oldest thing you have in the collection. I mean, right off the bat, okay, we'll start with the oldest thing in the collection, which is this camera obscura right here, made in France about 1820. Over here, this is the Giroux. Was introduced in August of 1839, signed by Daguerre, and again, these would be the first commercially manufactured cameras. And right up there with the Giroux Daguerre type camera is what's usually thought to be the oldest documented camera sold in the U.S. This is the camera purchased by Dr. Samuel Bemis on April 15th of 1840. The Royal Mail. This comes out about the turn of the century. It's a 15 lens camera. This is actually a little copy camera. It's designed to photograph another photograph, and what it does is it makes 15 very small images, which today we call thumbnails, and they were designed to be shared, so you could trade them with your friends. This is a string set Kodak, again, one of the most important cameras in the history of photography. This happens to be serial number 6. It's the earliest one that I know of, and unlike lots of other cameras, it still works. Try doing that with your digital camera in about 100 years. I also mentioned there are cameras that are legendary, and certainly the Nikon F falls into that category. It's introduced in 1959, sold for up until about 1973, virtually unchanged. I mean, can you imagine today producing the same camera virtually unchanged for that amount of time? This is the Canon Photura, and it was advertised with the slogan, is "Hold the future of photography in your hands." And it's really kind of a neat camera. I know people would go through them with airports and try to prove there were cameras through security in the old days. It's about 1988, and it has a lot of nice features. It's kind of a zoom, what we call a zoom camera today, a Z camera. But it's a film camera. This is the what's usually called the Lunar Hasselblad. It's actually technically called the Hasselblad Electric Camera, or HEC. These were designed by Hasselblad to be used by NASA for photography in outer space. We're in an unusual position that we actually have all of these things in the same organization. Generally speaking, the rest of the world would put the cameras in a science museum, the images would live in an art museum, the paper that we used, the catalogs to research the information on would be stored probably in a rare book part of a library. We have all these in the same place, so it really positions us to do a real history of photography where we can take the camera that Nick Murai used to photograph Marilyn Monroe and also have that camera and those images together, because we have them at the Eastman House. We have Joe Rosenthal's Speed Graphic and the the image, probably the best known image ever made of the flag racing at Mount Suribachi. We have Coburn's Shoe Delta Reflex and the octopus image he made with it. We have Stieglitz's RB Auto Graflex and the steerage. And we have the CDV camera by Disteri. He actually invented the process, believe it or not, and an uncut sheet made with that camera. Cameras are interesting for a number of reasons. Right off the bat, they serve a purpose. They allow individuals to document their personal lives, whatever they find interesting. But on the other hand, what you're looking at here is a very condensed study of one specific consumer product over a many-year period. And then I said, okay, well, what do you need to get from the camera obscura to the Leica? We wanted to create a book that would be a general interest book that would be of interest to collectors and historians who are interested in the history of photography, and also to those people who have just a general interest who might want to learn a little bit more. So we came up with a book that would hopefully satisfy both audiences. Since we were able to take all of these facets of the history of photography and tie it into one book, it allows the reader unique access to this type of information that you basically, as far as I know, can't get anyplace else.